Dr. Vincent Gaddis, and to get things started, I would like to first introduce the director of the Eola branch of the Aurora Public Library, an amazing woman who has been instrumental in putting this together and is deeply involved with this community, Krista Dennis.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Right, thank you, and welcome everyone who's joining us today on Zoom and in person here at the Santori Library. I'm so excited to get us started off. I am the branch manager over at the Eola Road branch, but I jumped back over here to Santori to join my pal Vince in another go. So really happy to see you all here, and thank you all so much. So thanks to the DuPage NAACP for your partnership on this great program, and Vince, your amazing work on it. In fact, the library is your go-to place for nonpartisan voter resources. So anything from voter registration to polling place and early voting information, any general information resources on candidates and elections in the Kane, Kendall, DuPage, and Will counties that we serve. That's our jam. You can also pick up a bookmark that my friend Allie is showing off here. It has some information and a QR code for you to scan for information about voter resources. Thank you. You can also join us here at the Santori Library on October 7th, Monday, October 7th at 7 p.m. for Fact Check Your Feed. That also is available online, so you can join us virtually if interested. This is where you will learn about how to tell fact from fiction on your social media feeds. You'll explore how to spot misinformation, verify claims, and more. So you can bring your device and we will bring the snacks. So it's totally worth it, no matter what. Tonight, this event is hybrid. So there's people joining us on Zoom webinar and here in person. There will be time for questions. Vince will call out for those. Please submit those via your note cards that you have. If you need a note card or more note cards, just give us a wave. Allie or I will bring those over to you. And we will collect them at the appropriate time. Okay, so I will be over here attending throughout the Zoom, but it is my pleasure to be able to introduce our amazing moderator today. Vincent Gaddis holds a PhD in history from Northern Illinois University with over 25 years of teaching experience in higher education. He is currently professor of history at Elgin Community College and an adjunct professor at Northern Seminary, where he teaches on the history of the urban church. Dr. Gaddis writes and researches on issues of race, class, and social justice, and is a frequent workshop presenter and facilitator on these issues, many times here at the library. He currently serves as chair of the Criminal Justice Committee of the DuPage NAACP, served on the Aurora Citizens Review Board, and is a past board member of the African American Employment Advisory Council for the state of Illinois, the City of Aurora's Human Relations Commission, the African American Family Commission, and the Advisory Board of Northern Illinois Jobs with Justice. Dr. Gaddis was ordained as a minister and pastor in 2001, and he's married to his beautiful bride and my friend Kathy, has 2 sons, Louis and Clinton, 3 grandchildren, Cosmo, Louis II, and Isaac. So please join me in welcoming Vince, and I will hand it on over to you. Thank you.
All right, and let me now introduce the president of the DuPage NAACP, very good friend, tireless worker in the community for justice, Mr. Michael Childress.
Thank you, Dr. Gaddis. I want to first thank everybody that came out. I also want to thank the candidates for giving us their time. One of the things that if nothing else is clear, it is crystal clear to me how important law enforcement officials are and attorneys and judges. This candidate forum today is extremely important for all of us because just as the name implies, state's attorneys represent the people. And they're going to be responsible for justice. If you don't know anything about one thing I like to say is, if we don't get justice, they have very difficult jobs, very difficult, because if they don't get it right, they have to get it right. If they don't get it right, somebody's being victimized. Either the victim didn't get justice because of somebody got away with the crime and we got the wrong person. And it's their job to make sure that we enforce all of the laws and get it right each and every time. It's a tough job. I couldn't do it, but I'm glad that somebody's stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, I will represent the people of the community. And with that, again, I'm Mike Childers with the NAACP. We represent 5 counties: Kendall, DuPage, Will, Kane, and Northwest Cook County. So with that, I'll turn it over. You're tired of hearing me. Let's hear what the candidates have to say.
And I will say that the NAACP is one of those organizations that everyone should belong to. So if you are not a member, it is of course open to all people. I highly encourage you to get involved in the DuPage NAACP is incredibly active across many different venues. All right, so let me introduce our candidates. Then I'm gonna go over the quick ground rules and we're gonna get this party started, all right? Let's go here. Let me introduce the people who we're here to talk about, or well, talk with. We're not gonna talk about you. We're gonna talk with you. Okay, all right. Relax, people. It's cool. All right, relax. All right, but see, in my past life, I was a stand-up comedian, so it just sort of comes out sometimes. Let me introduce first to you Ms. Jamie Mosser, who graduated from Illinois State University with a bachelor's degree in political science. She then attended law school at DePaul University, where she received her Juris Doctorate and certificate in criminal law in 2002. Upon graduation, she moved to New Orleans, Louisiana, where she took and passed the Louisiana bar, obtained her first legal job as an assistant district attorney at the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office. While in New Orleans, she prosecuted crimes in the juvenile and adult divisions. Those crimes ranged from simple possession of cannabis to homicide. In 2005, she moved back home to Illinois, where she took and passed the Illinois bar. In November of 2005, she accepted a job at the Kane County State's Attorney's Office as a prosecutor. She began her career in the domestic violence unit. Over the years, she was assigned to several different units, including DUI, drug rehabilitative court, felony, and special prosecution. In October of 2009, she was made the head of the domestic violence unit, where she prosecuted misdemeanor and felony crimes of domestic violence. She also supervised several attorneys in that unit. In October of 2010, she was given the Partner of Peace Award by the Community Crisis Center. In May of 2015, she left her job as a prosecutor to open up a law partnership with Kimberly Crum Klein, and in her private practice took a variety of cases, including family, criminal, real estate, etc. In 2017, she was awarded the Kane County Bar Association's Pro Bono Award. In March of that year, she closed her private practice, joined the Prairie State Legal Services as a staff attorney. She was assigned there to work with survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault and family law cases. In January of 2019, she opened a real estate firm with her husband, and that is called Mosser Eisenmenger Law.
Close enough.
Okay, close enough. All right, hallelujah. Okay, and we are also joined tonight by Mr. Andrew Sosnowski, who graduated from Loyola University, Chicago, with a bachelor's degree in political science, and after that went on to receive his law degree from Drake University. Andrew began his career as a prosecutor in Kane and McHenry counties in the 90s. In 1997, he was appointed chief of Kane County's new Family Justice Division, targeting issues like domestic violence and child abuse. Andrew also took temporary prosecutorial appointments in several counties. He was recruited to serve as chief prosecutor in Joe Davies County, where he tried a backlog of complex felony cases. In Ogle County, he served as chief of staff, building a 15-member staff and prosecuting crimes. From 2010 until 2021, Andrew was the general counsel for the National Insurance Crime Bureau. Andrew now owns his private practice, where he's currently the general counsel for Volunteers of America, Illinois. He also represents clients in various legal matters, including personal injury, insurance disputes, family law, and criminal defense. Besides practicing law, Andrew is the chairman of the Elgin Township Mental Health Board. He's also a senior lecturer of criminal justice at Aurora University. All right. And he is a legal studies adjunct professor at Elgin Community College. Let's welcome both of our candidates. Now, let's set the ground rules and get this party started. Here's what's going to happen. Each candidate, beginning with Ms. Mosser, is going to get an opening statement. So Ms. Mosser will go first, Andrew will go second. And then we will have several questions. When I ask a question, the person I ask the question to will get 2 minutes to answer. A lot of these questions have parts for both of you. So each of you will have 2 minutes to answer your part. But when I start with Jamie, after the 2 minutes of each of you get, then Andrew will have a chance for 1 minute as rebuttal. And then Andrew will get the first question, 2 minutes each, and then Ms. Mosser will get the rebuttal. Make sense? After a couple of questions, then we're gonna do some lightning rounds. You have cards at your seat. There are, or if you're joining us on Zoom in the webinar, you can go to the chat and we will take audience questions. Please direct them to one of the candidates, or you could do both, but in my mind, one, right? And then that candidate gets 1 minute to answer the question, but there is no rebuttal, right? Because we want to get through as many of those questions as we possibly can, because it's really about your questions, not so much necessarily my questions for this debate. Then when we wrap all of that up, about 45 minutes from now, we will have closing statements. Andrew will go first, Jamie will close, and that will be the end of the forum. Everybody good with that?
Excellent.
Awesome sauce. All right, so let us begin with the current incumbent state's attorney of Kane County, Jamie Mosser. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot one thing. I forgot one thing. People, I got a stopwatch. Okay, so you'll get the 30-second warning, the 10-second warning, the you are done warning. Okay, so just so we know, all right, because we do want to keep on time tonight and get through as many questions as possible. Okay.
I do know that's your experience with me, and you have that, so very good. So I am Jamie Mosser. I'm your Kane County State's Attorney. I've been lucky enough to have this job for almost 4 years. I absolutely love it. I ran under the premise that I wanted to bring true criminal justice reform to Kane County. I wanted us to do something that was right within our community for our community, and that's exactly what I've done over the last 4 years. Over the last 4 years, I've created a balance between understanding that the majority of the people who come into our system come in because of untreated mental health, substance use disorder, or a lack of resources. And those individuals need to be treated far differently than people who come in and cause violence to our community and do so intentionally. So what I've done is I revamped our entire system within Kane County to make sure we prosecuted in teams. And we had that focus towards rehabilitation. How can we help people? Conversely, there are people who commit crimes and do so and cause harm in our community. So I've created programs and vertical prosecution units that target those individuals, including creating Kane County's only Child Exploitation Unit, which is in partnership with our sheriff's office that goes after people who peddle child pornography. I have the best of my prosecutors dealing with those cases, with our homicide cases, with our armed violence cases, and our gun and gang members. Because you need to have that balance. You need to make sure that people are treated the way that they should be. If you are so unsafe to our community that the only thing that we can do is put you in jail or prison, that's what we have to do. If you are a person who we can't help by providing treatment and resources, we have to be able to get those treatment and resources to you as quickly as possible, but they also have to be the appropriate resources. I thank everyone for coming here today and everyone online. I'm looking forward to the questions to describe exactly what I've done over the last 4 years and why I am the person people should vote for re-election to continue this mission towards justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I am Andrew Sosnowski. As you've heard, I am the candidate for the Republican Party for the Kane County State's Attorney's Office position. As you heard, I'm not a newcomer to this agenda here. As a matter of fact, I've been an attorney for 35 years. In those 35 years, I have prosecuted and defended criminal cases. At one time, I was the only person, or one of the only ones in the state of Illinois, who actually tried a murder case to jury verdict as a defense attorney and as a prosecutor, tried it to jury trial, and also death penalty litigation. My experiences have led me in many different directions in my life, and it's led me to this day. I have been always working toward becoming the chief prosecutor of Kane County. At this age, I'm 64 years old. I'm not looking for a job. I'm not looking for a raise. I'm looking to actually take on a responsibility to represent the people of this county, to represent all people of this county. And in that regard, I have gone north to south, east to west, talking to real people. I'm not a person that's out there looking for political persons to shake my hand or pat me on the back or endorse me. As a matter of fact, I'm not looking for that. What I'm looking for is real people with real concerns, real problems, and to address those in ways that are going to be beneficial to them. And that's all communities. As a prosecutor, I also was the founder of the Kane County Child Advocacy Center. That's my crown jewel in my accomplishments. The Child Advocacy Center, as the state's attorney knows, still exists today with the same format that I used back 30 some years ago. It has helped numerous children to be a voice in court and to give them the opportunity to be protected at the same time. It's that spirit that I will bring to the Kane County State's Attorney's Office as your next state's attorney, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you. So I have a couple questions. So let me start with the first one, which will be, involves both of you, the way this question is worded, all right? Candidate Mosser. Does Kane County participate in LEAD, law enforcement assisted diversion? What have been the results? And for Andrew, would you continue such a program as the state's attorney? Why or why not? Jamie.
So yes, I'm incredibly proud of this because this was one of the initiatives that I talked about and I brought to Kane County. Illinois has only Kane County that does pre-arrest diversion. And so the concept is we partner with law enforcement, and when a police officer believes a person needs access to treatment and resources instead of being arrested and going to jail, they can send them to our grant-funded case managers. And these case managers help them in a harm reduction approach, which is how can we get you to where you need to be so that you're living a healthy life? We don't shake our finger at them and say, you have to stop doing drugs right now. We say, how can we make your life better? How can we make it so that you're not having contact with law enforcement? I believe so far the program has been a success. We've had our stumbling along the road, but that's because it's a brand new program trying to bring it into a community where we do have law enforcement that did not want to be a part of it because law enforcement felt we had to do it the same way. They'll lock them up, put them in jail, and then somehow the court system is going to solve all the problems. Well, you know what? We realize that does not work. We realize mass incarceration doesn't take away addiction issues. We have helped dozens of people in this program, sometimes with as simple as a person who is homeless because he didn't have any of his identification, getting his identification to be able to apply for housing, get a job, and now they're no longer on the streets. We've helped people get jobs. We've helped people get housing. We've helped people get to treatment to the point where there were people who had sometimes months of sobriety, which they had not been sober for years. I'm very proud of this program. I'm proud that it's almost entirely grant funded. It is a program that has made a difference in the lives of people within our community. It has made a difference in the lives of their families, and it should 100% be continued. Thank you.
Andrew.
Yes, thank you. I am familiar with that program. And I will tell you, as the next state's attorney, what I will do is I'm going to come into that office and I'm going to evaluate the programs. That's what you want. That's what you deserve. At this point, the data is not there. There's no data to say that the programs that are being started by the state's attorney are working. And it's something that I would want to do as well, to look at data that is working. And if it's working, we'll keep something. If it's not, we need to move on. In that regard, the programs of diversion and pretrial diversion or pre-arrest diversion or pre-prosecution diversion, there's lots of different diversion programs. They've been around for years. Law enforcement have been working with what they used to call station adjustments with communities, with people who are having concerns to keep people out of the system. I mean, let's put it this way. We don't want people in the system. If they get to the system, we've already lost. We want to, and so my mantra as well is building up our communities, looking at community resources. Like, for example, I go to the African American Coalition of Kane County. That's a group that wants to do mental health, work with behavioral mental health, with issues in the community. Looking at the churches, looking at a community crisis center or Ecker Center, and a lot of these centers that already have these programs and working and partnering with them. Rather than the state's attorney currently has a bloated budget. I mean, it's gone from $5 million over 10 million, maybe even 11 or 12. I look at numbers and it's been extremely, extremely bloated. What I want to do is I want to be able to give some of that money back. Give it back to the community organizations that can really do some work. The prosecutor's office is for prosecution. When they get there, these people need to know right and wrong, and they need to understand that something is wrong. And as long as it's done with justice and not with any type of issues that are going against justice, whatever that may be, then we're okay.
Okay. Jamie, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. By statute, the state's attorney's office is supposed to have deferred prosecution programs. The Safety Act that was created said that we have to have deflection programs. So the state's attorney's office is exactly where these programs are supposed to be. This grant funding, while a part of my budget, isn't the overall general budget. This is what the state and the federal government has given for programs like this to enhance the law. It is working. You can see the statistics for this in the end of year report that I have and that I've had every single year since I got into office. You can talk to our case managers, and frankly, there are plenty of people who have been given and made a difference in their life by this program. They're more than willing to come out to talk that one person believed in them and one person helped them walk down a path that they needed in order to be healthy again, to reunite with their families. The data is there and it will continue to be there. And as your state's attorney, I will continue to bring these innovative programs.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Andrew. The Trust Act of 2017, signed by then Governor Bruce Rauner, makes it illegal for state, county, or municipal law enforcement to ask anyone about immigration status or detain anyone solely based on immigration status, including in civil immigration cases, including ICE. Do you support this law? And what is your view on the recent busing in of migrants into the community, and what should the role of the state's attorney be in this particular moment?
Well, thank you for that question. Number one, I support the laws that exist. As the state's attorney, I'm not a legislator. I'm not someone to change the law. I'm there to work within the bounds of that law. So whatever the laws that are passed, I'm not going to be an advocate to change that. If there's something that's a problem, we can bring it to the attention of legislatures to change that. But when the law exists, I will follow that. You know, one thing that people don't know with people coming into the country from other places around the world, with our border situation, is when they come into Kane County, if they're coming in here by buses, there is a safety zone in Cook County, in Chicago, and it's the only safety zone in Illinois. So I will work with law enforcement to make sure that individuals who come to our county get to that safety zone. The people who are seeking asylum. The reason that is called the safety zone is they have the resources available. You can't have people in your county that you don't know where they're at. And here's why. Because there's exploitation everywhere. Places like exotic dance clubs, or places like the situations with massage parlors, or even the farmer in the fields will exploit workers who are here illegally. And as a state's attorney, I will work with law enforcement to make sure those individuals get to safe haven and to make sure that they are not exploited. And I will tell you as your state's attorney, if someone's exploited under my watch, whether they're legal or not, they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And if somebody does something that's a migrant and is illegal or legal or whatever, they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law as well. Now, what does that mean? You throw the entire book at them, they get the maximum penalty? No, of course not. You will do that with justice. You will do that with understanding who the people are and what their needs are, and we will work from there to make sure justice is served.
Jamie?
Thank you. So we have a policy within my office that we do not report anyone's immigration status to anyone in law enforcement. And that includes the people that we prosecute as well as the victims that we help in court. In addition to that, we have robust services for victims, including having a U visa program, which is designed to help those who are here, undocumented, who are victims of a crime, be able to obtain citizenship. And we work within our local community to make sure that we support them in every way possible. And we have one of the most robust programs in all of Illinois. In regards to the busing, I'm extremely disappointed in the way our Texas, or not our, the Texas governor decided to do that, because he did make victims of many people. The situation in which human trafficking has increased was caused as a result of this. And as a community, what we need to do in the state of Illinois, because this happened, is we need to help as many people as we can, because that's our job to do so. I can tell you within my office and within my collaborative diversion program, we've helped several people who have just been dropped off be able to get access to resources and not become victimized. The unfortunate reality is because we are close to Cook County and Chicago, and because we are near, we have 90 and 88 that are bordering us, we're seeing a rise in human trafficking offenses by people who are made vulnerable, and these individuals have been made vulnerable. And so what we have done in the state's attorney's office is done everything that we can to identify these individuals when we see them and work with our community resources to make sure that they're getting the help so that they are not either one, victimized or made victims, or forced to be in our criminal justice system because they are stealing to put a jacket on themselves or their children or get food in their stomachs. And that's what I've rallied around as the state's attorney.
Thank you. Andrew, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
Yes, we need to be cognizant that people are here in our community that need help, obviously. And as even a private practitioner, as an attorney, if you look at my background, I'm all for helping individuals who need something and need protection. And that's the same spirit I'll bring to the state's attorney's office. You know, certainly programs can be talked about, and again, statistics can tell you things, but when I look at an end of the year report that Ms. Mosser speaks of, those statistics are not there. They really are not, and there's a lot of money being expended. We can give individual stories all across the board, and certainly I have stories in my own life where I've helped individuals who are undocumented in great ways, even not giving them fees and helping them as an attorney. So that's the same spirit I will bring to the state's attorney's office, and it's our human obligation.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Together here. All right. So again, we'll start with Jamie on this question. You certainly the way I would read it was you opposed certain aspects of the Safety Act. You joined a lawsuit with Bob Berlin in DuPage County. What were the aspects of the Safety Act that you were opposed to? Do you regret taking those stances now that we've seen that the bill is working? If so, what? And if not, why not? What's been the data on bail reform in Kane County and things like body cameras, right? I mean, this has been in force for several years now. What's the data on bail reform, body cameras, et cetera, in Kane County since the bill was passed? Andrew, what parts of the Safety Act would you like to see revised, reversed, or modified?
First of all,
Jamie.
I object, that is not a 2-minute question right there.
We're gonna
So
try though.
I'm gonna do my best to speak quickly.
So we all wanna ask some questions too. That didn't count against you.
Thank you. So I did oppose the Safety Act, and not because of the concepts, but because of the way that it was drafted. As I said, I ran under criminal justice reform, and when I read it, I saw all the problems that were within it. Bob Berlin and I didn't join the lawsuit. We were the negotiators in it. We intervened in the lawsuit to get it shut down when half of our state was gonna follow it and the other half was not, because that's not true justice. Bob Berlin and I, opposite parties, worked with legislators and law enforcement to fix the Safety Act. Do I regret opposing it? Absolutely not, because my opposition got me to the table that got to fix it. I believe that it's the 3 trailer bills that myself, State's Attorney Berlin, legislators and advocates for this actually made this a workable law that we have before you. So for example, in the Bail Reform Act, in the Pretrial Fairness Act, we actually expanded the detention list significantly. There used to only be 6 categories, now there are 10 categories. We made it possible so that more people who are a danger can be held. We fixed problematic language that was confusing and how judges were going to be able to apply things and what we were going to do from day one of when we started. The data that we have right now is that this is working. Now there are fixes, and I need people to understand that there is a detention list that still needs to be expanded. The state's attorneys and I are collecting the data. We're coming up with actual cases as to why we should add certain offenses or how we should fix certain language with it. The body camera data has been fantastic. We find that our police officers love the body camera because they can show what they did if somebody makes an allegation against them. But we also know that when somebody makes an allegation against a bad police officer, we can prove it. Body cameras are absolutely working. I'm thrilled that my involvement in fixing this in the creation of 3 trailer bills has made the Safety Act what we wanted it to be when it was first put out by legislators.
Andrew?
Very good. Well, I'll start by saying body cameras are good. And I would support body cameras. And I think that that was a legislation that could have taken place without the Safety Act. And it's been discussed many, many years. And technology now is so good and so right. There's no reason why they should not be utilized. We've also found ways to use community resources and funding to get police departments these body cams. So I'm totally in favor of that. But let's talk a minute about the Safety Act. The Safety Act is a horrible piece of legislation. It's a horrible piece of legislation with absolutely brilliant intent. The brilliant intent is to stop any type of racism that is going on in our criminal justice system. That was really the intent, is to stop people from using race and other factors to determine people's, whether they stay in jail or not. And so that was a brilliant concept, but the law is awful. And I've heard it's amazing because I was just on another forum with my opponent and I heard her say that there's a lot of things that are still wrong with the Safety Act, and there are. And here's what I say, Illinois is the only state in all 50 states of the United States that has the Safety Act. There's a reason for that. A couple other states have similar things. Maybe the closest is New Jersey, but there's still ability to post bond on certain cases, and also the ability to keep individuals who commit high crimes is much easier in the state of New Jersey. We are the only state that has this law. So what I say is my day one, when I go into the state's attorney's office, if you elect me and you take my promise that I will give you to create justice in our communities, is I would call on a moratorium. I would contact the governor's office and say, we need to put a moratorium. We need to stop the Safety Act now because it's affecting our Black and brown communities on the opposite end in great numbers. And how do I know that? I go north, south, east, west.
Jamie, you get a 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you. So the Pretrial Fairness Act, which is a part of the Safety Act, was actually designed because we need to hold dangerous offenders or even a category of people with willful flight and not hold people who are not dangerous because of the facts of the case because of their criminal history. The problem is our old bail system put a cash amount on almost everybody, even though judges had an ability to just let them go with their signature. And what we found is that we were holding people who were of lower income and typically people who were of brown or Black color because we decided you have to post $500, which people could not do. The bail system was flawed. This has fixed it significantly, and there are still significant fixes. And I have to say, 100 out of the 102 state's attorneys in Illinois opposed the Safety Act. 2 counties decided to support the Safety Act. If 100 out of the 102 state's attorneys couldn't get the governor to stop what this is happening, I doubt my opponent has that ability to do so. What I do is I negotiate, I help to fix, I create great relationships, and that's exactly what I'll continue to do.
We're gonna take I'm gonna break from my questions. We're gonna get some of your questions in.
These are from online as well.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so we're gonna do a little lightning round with my instant vetting here. Okay, oh, that's interesting. All right, I'll give each of you a minute on this. There's no rebuttal. Do you believe the US justice system is blind? Is it appropriate that the system be blind? Jamie.
I don't believe it's blind because people walk into our courtroom and we can see them and we can make judgment calls, and that's from attorneys as well as judges. I think that it would be better served to be blind, but sometimes when you're blind, you also become deaf and you don't realize the why people have when they come into our system. I think what we actually need to use all of our senses whenever possible to see what true justice looks like for every single person. We need to talk to them, listen to their background, look at what's happened. And more importantly, we have to figure out what is the best thing to do for that person, for that situation, because that's when we as a justice system will actually do what we've been designed to do.
Yeah, it's absolutely not blind. And I'm going to give you an example. I was a prosecutor out in a rural county, probably 98% white. And when I was prosecuting, I went into a courtroom each and every day. Friday was our day where we had massive people coming. And it was traffic tickets and misdemeanors, low-level crimes. And I started looking around and everybody in that courtroom was Black or brown. And the county was 98% white. So justice is not blind. So what I did, and this is what I would do, the spirit I would take to the state's attorney's office, is I went to each and every police department and I called them out. They didn't like that. I was the chief prosecutor. I was his first assistant state's attorney. Fortunately, I was respected by my colleague there to allow to be able to do that. But at the same token, it's not blind. And the way we make it better is by standing up and saying something, calling it out. That's how we change the world.
Okay. Y'all are way better questions than I am. I gotta say, y'all are way better. All right, so we'll just do this sort of, 1 minute, one person goes first, another person. So you get to go first this time, Andrew. It's like a game show, right? Yeah, it's like, okay, here we go. What is your position on the problem of domestic violence in Kane County? How will you, as the state's attorney, address this issue?
Well, I'll tell you this, I'm glad for that question. I don't know who asked that, but this is a good one. As state's attorney back in the day in Kane County, I actually helped legislatures write the law that is called 11510.1, which allows a statement of a victim of domestic violence who gets afraid and doesn't want to come to court to be used as substantive evidence. Now, that sounds so esoteric to most of you because you're not lawyers, but that means if somebody makes a statement and the police take that statement down, that statement can be used in court when they're afraid to come to court. That absolutely needs to be done. State's Attorney's Office is the protector of individuals. My mantra is always putting victims first. Victims are the first priority to us. Victims need to be looked at. And the domestic violence are the ones that are the very difficult ones. I had so many situations as a prosecutor where people would be afraid to testify. And at the end, when I would make them sometimes testify, they would whisper.
So my career, as you heard in the opening, has primarily been in domestic violence. That is what I have focused on and what I continue to focus on. 11510.1 means the victim still has to come to court. It doesn't mean that they cannot come to court. Their statement still has to be used if they come into court. What's important to know is what I'm trying to do with our chief judge right now is to create 3 courtrooms that focus on the majority of the crimes that we have, which are domestic violence and DUI offenses, and treat those more as rehabilitative courts. The majority of the defendants that come before me are prior victims, and we need to focus on that. When I was an assistant state's attorney, I created Kane County's deferred prosecution program for domestic violence, and it is one of our most successful programs because we get people true help and we give victims a voice. When we have courtrooms that are dedicated to the prosecution of these cases, we're going to be able to see how we can truly help people by getting to the root cause of the issue. That's what I will continue to do as your state's attorney.
Great question. Okay, we'll ask one more, then we'll go back to my questions. But I think this is a really great one. So let's see where we started with Jamie. What is the most, let's say the single most important skill for being a good prosecutor?
Listening and empathy. The people who come before me may not look like me, and most of them do not. They may not have been raised in the way that I have, but we have to figure out why they're there. And that is the big focus that I took when I took office, is that my prosecutors ask, why did the person commit this offense? When you listen to what happens and you feel for that individual, you are more likely to be able to get them out of our criminal justice system. Because then what we can do is we can figure out what it is that they need, how we can help them, and how truly we can make sure that people don't continue to be victimized and people don't stay in our system. Our system is designed to do that with deferred prosecution programs, with pre-arrest diversion, and our specialty court programs, which help our highest risk, highest need individuals by making sure our system does exactly what it's supposed to do, which is to say, why are you here? How can we get you out of here without ever having you to come back?
Andrew?
Well, of course, compassion is important, but I think the most important skill is you need to have the heart of a lion. And what I mean by that is you need to be able to fight for people. This job is not for the squeamish. This job is a prosecution job. Sometimes you have to look at people who would do bad things and make them pay penalties for that. You also have to make sure that you talk to judges sometimes. I'm not afraid to look at a judge and say, this is something that needs to be done. I almost a couple times been held in contempt of court because I want to make sure that people's voice gets heard. You need to have the heart of a lion, and you also need to be willing to prosecute cases and stand up to law enforcement. You need to be able to stand up to law enforcement. They're not always right, but certainly they're not always wrong. And standing up to law enforcement is something that I can do. In my experiences, I talk to law enforcement all the time, and I challenge them, and I will continue to call them out for bad things that happen to our communities.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go back to some of the set questions for a moment. So we'll be back on the 2-minute rebuttal side. I think we left off with the first question last time went to.
I think it was domestic. Nope. Never mind. I can't remember.
Did you go? Well, that's okay. That's okay. We'll start with Andrew first.
Take your pick.
That's all right. We'll start with Andrew first.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. on some of your literature and so on, you have made the point of being a law and order candidate. What does that mean? And what does that mean in the context of a state's attorney's job, given that we have a state's attorney? So what does that mean? And what is your perception of that moniker when you, as the state's attorney? Andrew.
Well, thank you. Yes, that is on my literature, and I'm proud that that is one of my pillars, a law and order candidate. And what that means is I want to look at our communities. Again, I'm going all around this county. If anybody follows me, please follow me on Facebook or please follow me on any of the social medias. You will see that I make a concerted effort to talk to real people, people who are having real problems, people who have situations and concerns, and also law enforcement. And what I see and what I hear is concerns about the community and about the protection of community, and seeing some of the things that are happening in our neighboring county, like Cook County, slowly getting out here to Kane County. And what I mean by that is certain things we're ignoring when you have the Safety Act on even low-level crimes, and you ignore that and you show that there's no punishment, crime starts growing. And it might not grow in leaps and bounds, it might creep up. So when my opponent talks about statistics, I don't know what she's actually talking about, but I want real statistics to see real data, to talk about what's working and what's not. And I've looked at that year under the report. It looks beautiful, it's nice, it's glossy, it's pretty, but it doesn't tell me anything. And we need to know real specifics about what's happening. Law enforcement officers are concerned. They talk to me all the time about the concerns that they have where they arrest somebody and then they get back out on the street and immediately in the same day. There was one just happened the other day. It was a bomb threat in a school, and the law enforcement officer arrested her, was brought to prosecution, released, and the person was back at the school again. And the teachers and all the community was saying, what's going on here? And as a result, they could not rearrest her because of the Safety Act, because it has to be a crime with a misdemeanor or felony to get rearrested. And you have to just kind of say, okay, don't go back here, stop. Law and order means the buck stops here. And it means that we're going to do that.
Well, I'm mostly a big fan of Law and Order SVU if we're talking about the shows itself, but Law and Order is a diminishing way to look at what our system actually is. Our system is not the way it used to be. It's not that we're just gonna tell somebody not to do it, or we're gonna send them to jail and somehow it cures all the problems. Does it take care of a person's poverty to put them in jail or prison? Absolutely not. Does it take care of a person's mental health issue? No, it probably exacerbates it. Does it take care of a person's addiction issues? No, it's going to make it worse when they get out. What we actually have to do is look at what our criminal system does and what we can do. Our system has developed over time, and it's done so with science, and it's done so with programming that has been proven. I do agree that the end of year report is beautiful, but it also has actual statistics. And you took time to read the multiple pages within this, you would see the different crime trends that we've seen over the year. You've seen that when we see a crime increase in a certain area, that's when we're shifting programming and prosecutors and law enforcement to be able to deal with this. These statistics are not driven by me. These statistics are driven by the clerk's office, who is the keeper of the record. Those statistics are things that are created by the prosecutions, by the programming that we have. In reference, I'm not going to talk about an active case, but when a person is released by a judge. A person is not released by the state's attorney. There is a law that was created with the Pretrial Fairness Act, and while people may disagree with it, and while we definitely need to fix it, we have to make sure to understand it is still the law, and we have to work within the law. And to criticize a person who's enforcing the law is not understanding that I have to enforce the law. That is my job. I have worked really hard over these last 3 years to make sure that this law was the best it was when it came into effect, and I will continue to do what I can to make sure that it is the most effective as we go through and we pass even more trailer bills. Thank you.
Andrew, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
Well, one of the things my opponent said a few minutes ago was that, 100 people opposed this, prosecutors, and we still went through. So what's the governor going to do to listen? Well, the governor is going to listen, and this is why. Because communities now see the results of the Safety Act. And they are not changing the things that they were meant to change, which is racism in our system. It's not changing that. As a matter of fact, it's shifting that to our communities that are already affected by things like inflation, things about immigration. They're affected by these things. So when I say law and order, we need to bring these streets to the community and to make sure that people are safe. That's what my goal is. Safety is number one. We have to help people, but the state's attorney's office sometimes is not the place for that. There's a lot of community resources that I would utilize, and I would bring together roundtables of these community resources instead of spending the taxpayers' money on this down the hole.
Okay, thank you. Now we go first to Jamie. Okay, what is the demographics of the state's attorney's office? Historically, it has been, if I may be blunt, rather white. What efforts have been underway in your term to bring greater diversity, more people of color into the state's attorney's office? Andrew, what would you do about this situation if you were to win the election? Jamie.
So when we're looking at the state's attorney's office, I want to be clear that I want to separate out attorneys, our support staff, and our investigators and our advocates. Because when you look at who's applying for the jobs, you're going to see greater diversity depending on the job. In terms of our advocates, we do have more diversity within that. We have more people who are going for social worker programs, for advocacy programs, and so we have a greater diversity, which is fantastic because my victims can identify and associate with somebody who looks like them. Our support staff, we have it the same way, where we have a lot more diversity within that, but our support staff stays in the office, so it's not like that's very significantly helpful to our criminal justice system. Our investigators are mostly former police officers, so in that arena, we mostly have people who are white. Our attorneys, we have increased the level of diversity we have, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. I would say that we're probably around 5% in terms of diversity for the attorneys, and we've been working really hard to change that. The majority of the people who apply for the Kane County State's Attorney's Office come from Northern Illinois University. And while there is diversity that goes out to DeKalb and goes out to the school there, what we're really trying to do is make sure that this is a place where people want to live and work. We have been going to schools within Chicago. We have also been trying to advertise to schools throughout Illinois and also in other states to show them that this is a great place to live and work. One of the things that I'm most proud about is I fought over the last 3 years to increase my budget, not a bloated budget, but to increase my budget to make sure that my employees were actually paid what they deserve. My attorneys, when I started, came in at $59,000. Now imagine they're paying for law school, they're also paying for living in this community. I was able to increase that recently to $75,000, and now I have a better amount of people, more people who are diverse applying for this office because I value them as employees, and I value their ability to not only work in public service, but also live here.
Andrew.
Well, how I would get diversity in my office is I would talk to my friends. Because my friends are Black and brown and individuals who I care about. And I would start with them. I would start with talking to my friends and my colleagues within that. I go to social service organizations, even like the Quad City here in Kane County, in Aurora, and talk to African-American leaders in those areas. If you make a concerted effort, you can change the dynamic of an office. As a sole practitioner, I have an office in Elgin, and every one of my interns and people who worked in my office have been minority status in the last 3 or 4 years. I make a concerted effort to hire the Latino population who speak both languages. I've had African-American students in my office and working for me. As a matter of fact, I'm so proud to say that one of my students just graduated from high school. He was a high school student, Black high school student, and he wanted to come and see what it was like to be a lawyer. I said, come on and shadow us. He wants to do that. And now he's in Howard University. This is the kind of way we change it. We talk to people around us. It's easy to get people to come if they believe that you have their interests in mind. I absolutely 100%, I can't even tell you more of what I believe in that. I believe in a diverse office. I believe that we should have people that look at all different types, because all different types of people who are committing crimes are coming in. They need to look like the population they're serving. So I will do everything in my power to talk to my friends first, to talk to the community, to talk to professionals, and we will be able to recruit and change the actual physical look, because when you go there, it's not very diverse. And I see that. Every courtroom is mostly white. And I've been there.
Jamie, you get a 1-minute rebuttal.
So in addition to going to law schools, we've also made a concerted effort to go to colleges as well as high school. My attorneys, advocates, investigators, support staff, we speak for career days, we go into classrooms and we try to inspire people to be a part of the office. We have fantastic internship programs for Aurora University. I love that I'm a master's teacher there, and I've actually hired several of my students because the promise that they have. We're not just going to law schools, we're starting at high school, and we're making sure that kids know that they have an opportunity and a resource. And we've had high school students, college students, and law students all intern and eventually get jobs within our office. I do agree more work needs to happen. But that work also needs to have an inspiring leader and somebody who's going to look at the criminal justice system in the right way, and that's what I've done over the last 4 years. As I don't say that we've done it right, what I do say is that we can always do it better. I'm always willing to change the programs I have to bring in new programs and to make sure that we're doing the best we can.
Okay. This will be the last of the 2-minute round. Then we're gonna try and get like 2 or 3 more questions in, right? And then we'll close, okay? All right,
As many as you want.
couple 2 or 3 more questions, you know, and then we'll close, okay. So we'll start with Andrew. We've seen in the news lately, the Massey case in Sangamon County, where a law enforcement official was involved in a deadly shooting, who had had a couple of DUIs, a less than honorable discharge from the military, had been in several different law enforcement agencies. What is the role of a state's attorney in the hiring and making sure that law enforcement professionals are just that, law enforcement professionals?
Well, the question is a good question, and I'm going to answer it, and I'm going to go into a little bit of a different way here. First of all, the state's attorney's office doesn't have anything to do with hiring law enforcement unless they're investigators for the office. They don't have any really say in that. However, if the law enforcement respects you as a professional, they will maybe even bring you into the process. Now, I don't want to be in hiring law enforcement officers. That's not the job. As a matter of fact, the job of the state's attorney is to represent county officials. And county officials are one of the things that they do, not law enforcement. It's pathetic. It's pathetic when no one looks at the background of somebody and they're allowed to do what they do. It's pathetic. You know, recently we had a shooting in Elgin. And a law enforcement officer who was not on duty shot a black kid. Shot Tyquane Nelson, 18 years old, graduated from high school. Now, I don't know anything about this officer. I don't know anything about him. He was off duty. But the sheriff, who's a very close friend of my opponent here, who she gave $10,000 for his reelection campaign, gets on the news. This is pathetic. The next morning, before an investigation was even complete, and it's still going on, and praises the officer for heroism. Now, I don't know anything about that officer. I don't know anything about his background. I don't know anything about who he is or what he is. But the bottom line is we have somebody who's dead, and we have a sheriff getting up and saying, let's praise this person. Now, maybe there was some good things going on. But the reports that I see in the newspapers, and I'm only getting the news from there, so sometimes it's not correct, is they're all over the place. And it's under investigation. And how dare you get up and say someone's a hero without facts?
Jamie.
So it is true that we in the state's attorney's office do not have anything to do with the hiring of law enforcement officers. However, we do have an influence when we believe a law enforcement officer has not followed the law or has not ethically done what they were supposed to do. Within my office, I have a person who is a Brady Garrity Giglio officer, and I'm not going to explain all the different cases that are involved with that. But what we do is if there's a law enforcement officer who has done something that calls their credibility into question, we believe exceeded the use of force or did something that is wrong, we keep a list of it and we disclose it on each and every case that that person is on. And these officers know. We work with every single one of our police departments, and every 6 months we send out new information to them about, okay, chiefs, you have to tell us what this is. Individual officers, you have to disclose that to us too. And we have a very vibrant way in which we do that. Now, I'm not going to talk about this case because this case is under investigation. I can tell you that the facts that are in the media are not necessarily the facts that happen. And as your state's attorney, the only thing that I ever follow are the facts. I do not follow rumor. I do not follow supposition. What I can tell you is when the sheriff makes a decision to state something, that's the sheriff's decision. That has nothing to do with me. I fully supported his reelection because this is a sheriff who brought treatment into our jails, who was effective in actually lowering the amount of drug-related deaths that we saw because he actually took care of the person while they were in custody. His program is exactly what we wanted in Kane County, and that's exactly why I supported him. But as your state's attorney, the only thing that I do is justice in every single case. And when a decision comes out in that case, as it has done in every single case where I work with law enforcement, it will be based on facts and the law and not on anything else. And I've proven over 4 years that I am the person who is not swayed by anybody, any type of influence. The only thing that I do is I follow the facts and the law.
Andrew, we're gonna 1 minute rebuttal.
Well, I beg to differ on some of that because there are many cases that I can talk to you, I only have a minute, that are not showing that. But again, back on this sheriff's making a statement, can you imagine an elected official who's supported by the state's attorney getting up there after a young black man is killed and praising the person who killed him without any facts, without even being the investigative body that's doing it? That's obscene. And that is something that I would not tolerate. And this is the problem when you buddy up with somebody very closely and you get very close with somebody, you take what they have as well. So she says, I don't speak for the sheriff. Well, you do speak for the sheriff when you give him $10,000 and you have that. Can you imagine who's going to mitigate or who's going to answer the question? Is this a really good crime? Do you want somebody like who donates to the campaign? Do you want somebody like that determining whether there's a crime that's been committed or not? When the sheriff's up there saying he did a great job, he's a hero.
Okay, we're gonna do a couple quick lightning rounds and then we're gonna get back to, then we're gonna do the closing statements. Oh, man, we got a bunch of
I know.
questions. Okay, we now, be cool, people. We may not get through every question, all right? Be cool. Okay. All right, so this is for both of you and actually on the topic we're dealing with. So we'll start with Andrew, then we'll go to Jamie. How will you work with local police to improve safety?
Well, number one, I've got to tell you, you've got students here from Aurora University. I'm a professor there. And thank you very much, all of you, for coming. One young man right there, he's got my shirt on there. He's one of the kids in my class that said, Professor, we need law enforcement. We need somebody who's a prosecutor who's going to protect law enforcement. He looked at articles, he saw what was going on. He said, we think you should run for state's attorney. And then the next bunch of kids came up. This is a true story. It was like 12, 13, 14 days before I needed to have my name on the ballot. I didn't even know. I said, okay, then put me on the ballot. The next thing you know, this young man and several of these kids are out passing my petitions around. And they hear me every day as an advocate for law enforcement, as an advocate for safety, as an advocate for our communities. And that's a very big statement right there. I'd like to tell you that and get to know these kids and ask them why. Why did you do that? And that's how you're going to get your answer.
Jamie?
So the biggest thing that we can do to support our law enforcement is to provide training. One of the things that I have done within the office is I've created a training program where we actually go out when there's law changes, when there's particular cases that come up, we will go to roll calls, we will train on smaller issues, we will do bigger trainings. When the Safety Act came out, I went to almost every single police department to train them on what the law was supposed to go into effect on January 1st of 2023, only to have that shut down and changed, and then I had to do it all over again with all of the fixes that we did. But I did that because law enforcement is my partner and has been my partner. And I can tell you that the law enforcement in Kane County, I'm very proud of them. They don't like bad law enforcement any more than all of us don't like bad law enforcement. And they've been vocal about it. I am a part of the Kane County Chiefs of Police. I attend their monthly meeting. We talk about different issues. We bring in different resources. I have worked with the Chiefs of Police, the Sheriff's Association, in legislation to make sure that we can fix it in the way that we should. And that's what I'm really proud of, is how much we fixed the Safety Act.
Okay,
Do I have a rebuttal on that or no?
all right, let me, okay, sort of the same thing. We just asked about working with local police, but slightly different. We'll start with Jamie. How are you going to engage the community to address their concerns?
So when I came into the office, we created the Community Prosecution Unit, which actually is a terrible title, and we rechanged it because it sounds like we're going out prosecuting everybody. And so what we do, we have a wonderful woman within my office. Her name is Pam Bradley, and I found this out when I interviewed, or not interviewed, talked to every single employee, and I found out that she used to be the person that worked in the community, but then was put as a support staff person. So what we do is we actually go out in the community. We attend meetings, we find out when there are issues that are going on, and we involve ourselves if we need to. Or when we can is the better way to say it. And so that's what we've really been proactive about. We've done a lot of community presentations to talk about different issues like human trafficking, domestic violence. We talk about the substance use issue. We put on forums, we do community events, we do symposiums. We're getting into the community to find out what the problems are so that we are proactive instead of just reactive. And that's something that I'm really proud about our community unit, that we've made a difference.
Well, that's nothing new. That is, and it's good that that's being done. It has to be done. But that's been done for years, reaching out to the community. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm a chairman of the 708 board, which is the mental health board in Elgin Township. And there's a lot of resources that are available to communities. And we give money to those resources, and they're all over the county. There's one in Aurora here, the mental health organization. We need to partner with those. I've never had one state's attorney or anybody requesting anybody to come and talk to the mental health board. And that's a real board that deals with behavioral, psychological, medical, also drug addiction. It deals with all the panacea of issues that are related to that. And I would work with those mental health boards very closely. I will also continue to work with law enforcement, and I'll end with that because I didn't say this. Law enforcement is very important to me. I'd like to go to the Chiefs of Police Association. I've asked to be invited several times to speak, but now I guess I know why, because my opponent is on that in that committee, and they never let me come.
Okay, let's see, we started with the last time. Doesn't matter, we'll start with Jamie.
Okay.
All right. Where do you stand on qualified immunity for police officers? Is it time to end it substantially, or is it time to end it or substantially modify it? And take 10 seconds just to explain what does qualified, the definition for those who may not know what qualified immunity is.
Got it. So qualified immunity is a protection that police officers have, that if they're doing their job, they're not going to be sued for doing their job. Now, there are ways that qualified immunity could be pierced, and this is where I'll go.
I'm starting your time.
Good. Because if they do something that they're not supposed to do, if they commit a crime, if they have excessive use of force. I think qualified immunity has been studied throughout all 50 states, and you'll see that there are differences. I do believe that police officers should have a version of qualified immunity. I think the discussion has begun and needs to continue with what is the best way to make sure that police officers, when they're acting in good faith, and they're not violating any laws, continue to get that protection. Because just imagine you're a police officer and now you're getting sued because you did your job. Not because you violated a crime, but because you did your job. There's an aspect to it because we expect them to go out there and put their lives on the line. I do think that when we sit down and have good conversations with our legislators and our law enforcement and our state's attorneys and people who have been affected by violence in our community, we can create a better and the best program Illinois could possibly have for it.
Andrew.
Yes, let me say something. This is an idea you'll know. When you talk about qualified immunity, it's similar to the Good Samaritan rule. You've heard of that. So if you go out and help somebody and you end up hurting that person, you're immune from liability. And the reason for those kind of laws like qualified immunity is you want to encourage people to react. You want to encourage people to come in and help. You want to encourage police officers to continue to do their job. You want to encourage police officers to continue to protect and serve the communities. So I am for qualified immunity. I think it's very important and a step forward in the direction of law enforcement and mitigation of criminal acts. Now, that doesn't mean that it's unfettered. That doesn't mean that we don't train officers and make sure that any types of problems that would make them concerns come in. And then you see the case like Massey, who somebody's hired, there's a hiring problem, there's a problem. We're not going to solve every issue. Even if we had no qualified immunity there may still be a problem in that case. So the bottom line is we have to encourage our police officers to continue to protect and serve our communities.
Okay. And this one specifically for Andrew, I'm trying to find a specific Jamie question for next, okay? All right, so this one specifically for Andrew. How is your opponent not a law and order candidate? What data are you using? And we have heard, I mean, it is a kind of a loaded political term, law and order. And so how do you see that? Law and order is led in many ways to the era of mass incarceration that we're in, that right in the way that that term is used. So once again, how is Jamie not a law and order candidate? What data are you using? And tell us why you're using that term once more.
All right, well, thank you for the question. Whoever had that, I appreciate that. I don't know if my opponent would be defined as law and order candidate. She certainly seems to be repelled by that concept. And I don't want it to hearken to days where there's mass incarceration. That's not what law and order means. Law and order means to keep your community safe. The people I'm talking to in the communities want to be protected. Again, it's things like the Safety Act and progressive laws that are passed in Springfield by one party, by the way, controls the entire state of Illinois. And what's happening is when you have that, you don't have debate or discussion. You have one rule. You need a state's attorney that's going to at least be able to stand up and say, there's a problem here and let's fix it. Not just let's ignore it. You need a law and order candidate, to me, would stand up to that and say, this is something we need to do to protect our communities. Our communities are being affected by these rules and laws. And they're especially low-income areas, they're affected even higher.
Okay. This one's for Jamie. If you are re-elected, how will you ensure that crime will continue to drop without inflating an already inflated budget?
Well, I think you mean when you're reelected. I just wanted to fix the question a little. So first of all, this concept of the.
NAACP is nonpartisan.
So first of all, the concept that the budget is inflated is just wrong. The state's attorney before me, Joe McMahon, had attempted to do exactly what I did, but unfortunately did not have a board that valued the safety of our community in the way that our current board has. I have gone when I see an uptick in crime like child pornography cases, and I said, look, this is what's happening. We are not investigating, we are not prosecuting these cases. I need investigators and forensic analysts, and I need prosecutors to put these people in prison. When domestic violence went on the rise, or the child abuse cases during the pandemic, and we saw our child abuse and neglect cases double, I went to the board and said, we need help. All that I did is I helped to create a budget that truly kept our community safe, truly kept people at the office and paid them the way that they deserve to be paid so that I'm not losing valuable employees because we don't treat them as a valuable commodity within our county.
Thank you both very much for all of those responses to, I think, some very important questions for deciding our next state's attorney. We're going to move now to closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes for your closing statements. And if I get to my rule sheet here, each of you will have 2 minutes for your closing statement, and we will begin with Andrew.
Can I stand?
Sure.
Yes, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I thank you for coming tonight. It's really important to see you all here, so thank you very much. I have been an attorney for 35 years, as you've heard. And I have done a lot of things that I'm very proud of. Proud because they serve my community. Proud because they enrich our children and our families. Proud because they have given our children a hope and dream. And that's what my campaign has been about. I ask for your support as your next state's attorney so that we can continue that. We can continue to raise up our children and our families. And how I do that is I do go to community organizations and community places and talk to people. As your chief prosecutor for the county, you don't only handle criminal cases, you handle civil cases as well. I was the general counsel of the National Insurance Crime Bureau, a $50 million agency that worked with Interpol, Interstate Police, and also Homeland Security all across the United States of America, every 50 state. And we did a lot of civil litigation as well. You need an attorney that knows civil cases. You know, the state's attorney that's currently sitting here, there was a dispute that went on about zones that were called free speech zones. And one of the prosecutors in her office put together these free speech zones with the county board. And then the state's attorney says, I did not even know that that was there. Now, either she didn't know it was there and her group did this without her permission, or she says her clients did not listen to her. Well, when I have clients that don't listen to me, you know what I say? You need another lawyer. So what I'm saying to you is you need another lawyer, county board, and I'm the guy right for your job. I'm ready to take this job and I'm ready to run and I'm ready to protect every single citizen of this county. And that's my vow to you. Get to know me, check me out, come and talk to me, invite me to your house, invite me to your programs, come and meet me because I am the guy, the real thing.
You are certainly welcome to stand if you would like as well.
I'm good. The
Okay,
camera, I'm.
all right, Jamie.
So thank you all, both people online, people who are here, because this is a long program, but it's an important program. Local politics means something because we have the most impact on what is going to happen to you. And it's better to know who and why you're voting for somebody than to just check a box, especially if you're just checking a box because of the letter next to their name. I love that I have the rebuttal because as a true prosecutor, this is the best part of the case because I get the last word in terms of everything. So I want to talk about 3 things. First of all, the proof of me being the best person for this job is already there. I have the statistics. I have 3 years so far of what we have done as an office to accomplish safety, and I've publicized that. I have transparency. We've seen difficult cases. We have seen people who have truly been helped in our community. So the proof is there. And as a prosecutor, that's what I operate with, proof. I also have the passion. I am not a person who sits in the courtroom. I am out in our community a lot. I call people within our community, sometimes to the point where people will call with a complaint and I call them back and they're like, I didn't think you were gonna call. And I'm like, well, why'd you call me then? But I'm out in the community because I want to see what the true issues are and I want to be proactive and not just reactive. And lastly, politics. There's a big deal about all of this because we have to run with the party. I've proven that I will do what's right for our community. I will not do what somebody tells me to do. And that's why when the Safety Act, which was passed by Democrats, I was the first Democrat to oppose it. And I didn't oppose it because of the concept, I opposed it because it just needed to be made better, and that's why I got invited to be part of the people who drafted those important changes. Now, my opponent, again, has mischaracterized these 3 speed zones. One person in the county board decided to make that, which was against our legal advice, not with our legal advice. And you know what? Clients don't listen to their attorneys all the time, which is why we have a judicial system and we have lawyers to represent them. I'm asking for your vote today. To find out more information, please go to my website at www.mossaforkane.com, because I will continue to do more for this community as I have done for the last 4 years. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Gaddis and the NAACP.
Thanks, Mr. Gaddis and the Aurora Public Library for hosting us tonight. Let us thank the DuPage NAACP for continuing work for benefits in the community, and thank you for participating. This is the most important thing we can do. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gaddis.